An NFL abuse scandal highlights the breakdown of the American family. I'm John Phillips, and this is After Hours. In a surprise reversal, the Minnesota Vikings has suspended star running back Adrian Peterson indefinitely for accusations of child abuse. So far, Peterson's accused of whipping his misbehaving 4-year-old with a switch, leaving him bruised and bloody with an injured testicle. And then we have allegations that he beat another of his kids, leaving a scar on his head, prompting that kid's mom to text him saying, "What happened to his head? What did you hit him with?" By the way, all this is going on after another of his kids was beaten to death, allegedly, by that mother's boyfriend last year. Did I mention that Peterson apparently has at least 7 kids with at least 5 different women? Here's one of the moms in her own words.
You said something there. You said that you knew of 5, but didn't know of the 2 that just came out, because we broke the story about your baby and another baby yesterday, and then we knew about the other 3, obviously. Are there more that we're not counting?
The one that passed, I didn't know about, or the little girl that you guys reported yesterday. But my son knows of 4 other brothers and sisters.
Well, that's 6.
So then there are others.
That's 6. So there's one more that we still don't know about, in other words.
No, that's 7.
When Peterson was asked directly how many kids he has, he literally refused to say. Maybe he doesn't know. Here's the deal. This story is about the total breakdown of the American family. When you have so many kids with so many different women without marrying any of them, it doesn't matter if you're providing for them financially. You are a terrible parent, with or without brutal whippings. Here to kick this around is the After Hours panel. She's the host of the Tammy Bruce radio show, who you can get online at tammybruce.com. Tammy Bruce. He's a very fair-minded civil rights defense attorney who you can get at clearthecourt.com. Mr. Leo Terrell. And he's the PJTV contributor from his home studio in the great state of Texas, Scott Ott. Scott, we'll start with you on this. You're the dad on the panel here. When it comes to disciplining children, I'm one that is prone to defer to parents in most cases because there are different rules in different households. Different things are acceptable, different things are not acceptable. But when you start leaving lacerations on the kid's body, when you start injuring their head, when you damage their testicles, of all things, that has crossed the line, and it is the business of the state to say stop it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, if you're properly disciplining your children, whether that's physical discipline or otherwise, it doesn't leave lasting marks. You know, the only mark that should be left is a sense of wrongdoing and respect for authority, for the parents. But it shouldn't leave scars. It shouldn't leave bruises. It shouldn't leave, there should never be blood. Now, all of that said, I am so reluctant to comment on the particulars of any case in the news these days, just because I know how people can mess around with stuff. I know how photos can be misused and twisted and changed. And I know how people who are trying to, you know, bring about the downfall of especially a celebrity or a popular or well-known individual can manipulate the stories. But in a general sense, you know, there is a way to physically discipline a child without leaving a mark like that, and to be effective at doing that.
Well,
from what we've seen so far, that's not what happened here.
Let me piggyback on that, because initially this was reported as just a strict disciplinarian, maybe a throwback, a guy who doesn't put up with a lot of guff from his kids. But when you look at the details, when you have 7 kids from 5 different women, it looks to me like this is just an adult who has no self-control at all, and that includes when he's beating his kids out of anger or whatever it is that he's feeling that day.
I think that would be a reasonable conclusion. I mean, you know, when I look at the situation, and if everything that we've heard is true, you know, somebody needs a spanking, but it's not the kid.
Leo, this case is a really bad case. It's damaging the already tarnished image of the NFL. When you look at this man, Adrian Peterson, what do you see? Do you see a strict disciplinarian, a throwback, or do you see a guy who has no control over himself at all?
I see a combination of all those things. Look, I am a strong believer that a parent has the right to discipline their child. I was whipped with a switch. That was part of my upbringing as African American.
Leaving marks?
Left no marks, but there was initial temporary marks, and you know what? I'm a better person for it. My mom and dad are not abusive parents, but it was very good for me, and it was something that I needed as a deterrent. Now let me go one step further. Since the history of mankind, wealthy and powerful men have had kids all out of wedlock. I don't have any children out of wedlock. I haven't done that.
That you know of.
That I know of. But my point is simply this. Adrian Peterson is a microcosm of a person who is wealthy, rich, and famous, and that woman who you showed on TMZ gravitated towards her. She was a topless waitress or whatever. So these women gravitate towards these men. They know what they're getting into. And so I want to make sure that Adrian Peterson is not singled out as a monster. He represents typical wealthy and powerful men.
If you beat your kids to the point to where you injure their testicles, you are a monster, aren't you?
Yes. Adrian Peterson crossed the line. But I want to make it clear. No one has defined what is the appropriate amount of physical discipline you can administer to a child.
Now, Tammy, one of his kids, as I mentioned in the monologue, was beaten to death by the boyfriend of that child's mother. If that happened to one of your kids, shouldn't you be sensitive to these things when you're disciplining your children?
Yeah, I'll tell you though, I think it's also a reflection of what your experience was as a child. I mean, we're all raised with an attitude, if this is a standard within a community and everybody does this, and that's what happened to you, you're going to be inclined to do it to your child. The other issue is, especially when they are children out of wedlock and they don't live with you for an extended period of time, or you get them for the summer, as he does one of his kids, you're not necessarily seeing the impact of the relationship when it comes to what that beating does. Now, I needed to be disciplined on occasion when I was a kid, but I was actually a very good kid. But you know how it happened? I was a voracious reader. And I came home one day from school, all of my books were gone. All of my books are gone. We had record players then, of course, and a record player was gone. I had to earn those things back. And if I wasn't good, then more things would go. So the parent was, and my mother was, working constantly, 2 part-time jobs, very much like what a lot of families are dealing with today. And what you find is what matters to the kid, and you remove it. Look, it's the 21st century. The physical attacking of a child seems to not work, considering the level of violence that we're dealing with in the country, considering the attitude and the behavior of children now. So we clearly are seeing something that's not working very well.
Well, this country condones corporal punishment. It's in schools. It used to be in school when I was growing up.
No, now it's gone.
But my point is this.
But it's also age appropriate, though. You don't do that to a 4-year-old.
Well, but can you administer physical pain as a form of discipline? And my position is a family member can. Now, how much is what is so vague and ambiguous? We don't know.
Let's take a look from Charles Barkley, the former NBA star, who was commenting on this. Let's see what he had to say.
What about the other? Can you hit a child?
I'm from the South. I understand boomers' rage and anger, but I think, listen, we have to accept we were born in, he's a white guy, I'm a black guy. I don't know where he's from. I'm from the South. Whipping is, we do that all the time. Every black parent in the South is going to be in jail under those circumstances. I think we have to be careful letting people they dictate how they treat their children.
It doesn't matter where you're from. Right is right and wrong is wrong. It doesn't matter where you're from.
Do whites and blacks look at this very differently?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. I go to certain restaurants, and I see little white kids running around the stores, and I'm sitting there saying, that wouldn't happen in my family. I see little white kids run a restaurant. I hate you, Mommy. I hate you, Daddy. I said, well, no discipline in that house. Now, Tammy gave a great example where discipline is not necessary as far as punishment. But boy, black families and white families, there's
a difference.
Is it a white and black thing, or is it a Southern thing?
No, listen, my parents came from Mississippi, but they did a good job of administering corporal punishment in Los Angeles.
But look,
that's where I was born.
Punishment and discipline does not have to be physical.
Why, but do you rule it out? Can you have physical punishment?
Look, and the things that are being done to children, if you did them to an animal, you would be arrested, because that would be animal abuse.
No, what you're saying, I'll see if the question can be asked. Is anyone opposed to physical punishment as a form of discipline? I believe a parent should have that right. I'd like to hear the comments of my colleagues.
Well, how about it, Scott? First of all, do you think spanking or hitting someone with a switch, a 4-year-old with a switch, is acceptable? And do you think it is different between whites and blacks?
Well, first of all, I think you need to discipline Leo Terrell. He's just taken over the show. He's asking the questions now. I mean, after hours with Leo Terrell. What kind of show is this? You know, I found it interesting that Leo, in one of his answers, felt like he had to throw in as an African-American. Charles Barkley has to throw in as a black guy and as a Southerner. I mean, as if there is some sort of cultural imperative about how you discipline your children based on the color of your skin or the regional, geolocation of your family. I don't think that's the case. I mean, there was physical discipline in my household growing up. It never, left a mark that lingered past a couple of minutes, and it didn't leave me worse for it. I think that I agree with Leo that there is a way that physical discipline can be an important part of the upbringing of a child. I disagree with Tammy that for some reason, because we beat our children or whip our children, therefore we wind up with a violent society. I would argue quite the opposite and more in line with what Leo said, which is the lack of any kind of sound discipline in the home, not just physical, but throughout the home.
I agree with sound
discipline. Is causing the rebellion that makes kids think that they can do whatever they please.
Look, absolutely, there needs to, the debate here clearly is not whether there should be discipline. It's about whether or not it needs to be physical. I mean, that is the bottom line. And considering the condition of the South, considering, yes, the levels of violence in the country, considering, as we would argue, when it comes to the number of African-American men in trouble with violence issues, there is something that's happened here that we might be able to attach for whatever your complexion, that being hit and physically assaulted,
particularly with objects,
and with objects, or also even with age, whether it's because you're 4 or if you're going to do it to a 10-year-old, how can that not tell you that a physical response to something that you don't like, to your wife, to your own children, isn't the right thing to do?
I sit here as a African-American who had been disciplined with a switch. I have never hit a woman. I have never been violent.
Well, but
you're broad stroking the act of this. This leads to a violent person. I am not a violent person, and it was.
Here's what's different between you and what's going on with these kids, though.
Okay.
Your mom and dad were in the same house.
Oh, come on.
You grew up with a nuclear family that was there. What's going on here, I think, is at the heart of it, which is these are broken homes. They have all the money in the world, but 7 different kids. For 5 women?
But what your statement now indicts every single parent who now, because of the lack of a 2-parent household, they are going to run a sort of a roughshod type of family life. That's not true.
I think it's a contributing factor. Scott, your thoughts?
Well, and I think there's a big difference in how you administer that. Tammy, I do not think that the argument is about whether it has to be physical, but if you engage in physical forms of discipline, it's how you conduct that. If you're angry as a parent and your child needs discipline, you need to take a time out for yourself, and you need to sit back and say, you know what, I'm going to cool off for 20 minutes, and then we're going to get back together with that child to make sure that the adrenaline in me doesn't result in bloodshed in that child. There is a way to do it in love, and frankly, there is an argument that has been made that using something like a switch or a belt or a paddle or something like that is actually better for your child in the sense that they're not being hit with your hand. It's a less personal form of doing that.
Scott, when you have to make that difference of, like, if I use the object or my own hand, this is the Middle Ages we're talking about here. There are so many things you can do. These days, you take away their smartphone. You do ground them. You take things away that they rely on. The experience is that you want there to be a repercussion.
They're getting pretty big now. You can just paddle with the iPhone 6.
Hurting someone physically.
I'm hearing Tammy tell me that my parents were bad parents. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing Tammy tell me that my parents were bad.
It's not all about you, Leo.
Last question. Let me go down the
horn.
Okay. Do you have it in you to hit a 4-year-old with an object?
God, no.
Do you?
Yes.
Scott?
I've never had to do that, so I don't know how to answer.
Do you have it in you, though? Kids running around the restaurant, you're telling them to sit down, and he's running around.
Well, I'll tell you, there have been times when I've been in public places and somebody had no sense of control or authority over their own children, and I did feel like walking up to them and saying, excuse me, ma'am, would you like me to spank your child for
you? Yeah, there he goes.
The answer for me is no. I couldn't hit a kid. Couldn't hit a 4-year-old with an object.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, go have
one,
one,
I get the last word. Spoken as someone who has no children. Tammy Bruce, host of The Tammy Bruce Show. You can get her online at tammybruce.com. Leo Terrell, the very fair-minded civil rights defense attorney with good parents.
But I'll take away everybody's stuff. Watch out.
That's right. She's going to take away Leo's microphone.
I'm taking your stuff.
And Scott Ott, whose political satire books are available at Amazon.com.
You'll take this is my Kindle. It's green, and you'll never take it out of my cold, dead hands.
If you'd like to comment on today's show, you can do so in the comment section below. For After Hours, I'm John Phillips. Thanks for watching.